Do you know that feeling when someone blocks your escape route in a fire? That's exactly how I felt the day I discovered Karen from the HOA was sneakily charging her shiny new Tesla using my outdoor electrical outlet without permission. At first, you might think this is just another petty neighborhood dispute, but trust me, how my smart power system turned her $9,000 luxury ride into a useless brick is far more satisfying than any binge-worthy drama. Let me set the scene. I grew up in a Midwest blue-collar neighborhood where borrowing always meant asking first and returning with gratitude, a lesson clearly lost somewhere between there and Pinewood Estates, where I now live. Deborah Harrington, our Tesla-driving suburban queen, moved in next door thinking the world runs on what's mine is yours and what's yours is definitely mine. Her husband is a high-powered lawyer. Her kitchen's outfitted with imported Italian marble, and she made sure to mention the word premium more times during her house tour than I've ever heard at a car dealership. She rolled into the HOA like a pro, using flattery and intimidation, and within 6 weeks had muscled her way into the vice presidency. Conveniently right after the previous VP, a retired principal, mysteriously quit. Rumor has it Deborah twisted the knife after discovering some shady DUI business involving the old VP's kid. This whole drama might have stayed background noise if my electric bill hadn't tripled the very first month she moved in, jumping by $150. As an electrical engineer with 6 years in the Army Corps and now working remotely for a tech company, I naturally ran diagnostics on every appliance and even roamed my house with a usage monitor like a ghost hunter tracking down kilowatts. But everything seemed normal. That is, until my security camera pinged at 2 a.m., and I saw Deborah herself, dressed in a silk robe, sneaking through my backyard, running an extension cord from my outdoor outlet, weaving it through her HOA-approved shrubbery, and plugging it straight into her Tesla. The audacity blew my mind. The next morning, phone in hand with the video queued up, I confronted her. She acted like I was the crazy one, laughed it off, denied it was her, and claimed maybe my electrical system was outdated. As I walked away, she threatened to report my landscaping violations to the HOA, pointing out that my hedges were apparently 2 inches above the regulation height. Like I said, Deborah doesn't just break rules, she rewrites them. So I installed a lockbox on my outdoor outlets to stop her. Problem solved, right? Wrong. A few days later, I got a violation letter from the HOA demanding I remove the unauthorized exterior modification. The letter was signed by Gregory Palmer, the HOA inspector who had recently acquired a suspiciously fancy designer watch and developed an odd fondness for Deborah's happy hours. I tried to explain the situation, even showed him the footage, but he didn't care, calling it a private dispute and insisting that the lockbox was within his jurisdiction to regulate. I dragged myself to my very first HOA meeting, documents in hand, ready to speak up, only for Deborah to cut me off with a point of order, claiming that private disputes couldn't be aired in meetings and had to be submitted in writing for board review first. The HOA president, Frank, was basically a human question mark and went along with it. Then, out of nowhere, Deborah pitched a plan to build 4 new EV charging stations near the community center, including one right next to her house, with the cost of electricity to be divided among all residents. I studied the documents carefully and realized she was turning the entire neighborhood into her personal power source, and no one had any idea. I wasn't going down without a fight. I dove into HOA rules, local laws, and power codes, learning that the board's enforcement powers were limited, especially around utilities and safety. That's when I met Martha Wilson, sharp as a tack and here since the beginning, who keeps meticulous notes on every HOA shenanigan. Through Martha, I connected with Brian and Sarah Thompson, a family squeezed by the rising HOA fees caused by these new charging improvements. Their son Tommy can't even play baseball anymore because they can't afford the extra costs. The community wasn't just annoyed, it was hurting. With their help, I started collecting signatures, documenting data, and monitoring the exact power drain. I tracked 75 kilowatt hours a night flowing straight from my outlet to Deborah's Tesla. Martha gave me the HOA bylaws. The Thompsons rallied more neighbors to join our cause. The night before the next meeting, Martha called to say it had been postponed due to technical issues, but I knew Deborah was whispering in Frank's ear. Enough was enough. I gave Deborah one last chance, knocked on her door, and showed her the numbers and videos. Her husband answered, brushing it off like it was a rounding error, and asked if we couldn't settle it like adults, but it wasn't just about money. Deborah stormed over, threatening to use her husband's legal muscle to ruin my life and reputation. She even spread rumors that I was unstable due to my military past. Neighbors began avoiding me. The Thompsons had to cancel meetings, classic manipulation. So I went to work in my garage, building a smart power protection system, a fully code-compliant industrial-grade safeguard, because I'm not backing down from this fight. This is more than just a dispute about electricity. It's a battle for fairness, respect, and protecting our community from exploitation. It wasn't illegal, just bulletproof. I built a smart industrial-grade power protection system that monitored electrical usage down to the second, issued escalating warnings, and if someone tried to override it or pull more power than allowed, it would initiate a controlled shutdown. Not just a flip-the-switch kind, but a serious engineered protocol complete with blaring alerts and blinking lights, meant to scare off anyone who knew even a little about how sensitive EV batteries can be. Ignore all those warnings and the system could trip the battery management system of a Tesla, essentially bricking the car until it was professionally serviced. I installed it with care, documented every wire and component, posted a clear warning sign near the outlet, and even had a friend, an official city inspector, come check and certify that everything was up to code. Predictably, Deborah didn't stop. She waited until late at night and plugged her Tesla into the community charging outlet conveniently located next to my home, thinking she was being clever. She maxed the charge rate, blew past every blinking warning, and then, just like I designed, the system shut it all down. No sparks, no fire. Just a dead Tesla sitting there like an overpriced paperweight. A few hours later, she was banging on my door, silk robe flapping, demanding I pay her $22,000 for repairs. Her husband, all smug in his designer loafers, tossed around threats of lawsuits like confetti, but I was ready. Every charge log, security. Footage, warning notice, system diagram, even the approval from my inspector buddy, I had it all laid out in a folder thicker than her ego. Then came the special HOA meeting. Word had spread, and everyone showed up. I mean everyone. Record attendance. Parents juggling toddlers, retirees in folding chairs, even people I'd never seen before. I stepped up and walked them through it all, how she'd been stealing power, ignoring safety, manipulating board members, and costing the neighborhood real money. I played the video of her sneaking through the bushes, showed the charge graphs, broke down the math. The crowd turned. You could feel it in the air. Years of passive frustration turning active. Martha, our unofficial neighborhood historian and whistleblower, moved for an immediate vote. Deborah was stripped of her title, hit with a $7,000 repayment demand, and all board positions were declared open. She and her husband quietly listed their home within a week, took a loss on the sale, and moved out without a word. No tearful goodbyes, no casserole send-offs. Only Martha across the street, sipping tea on her porch like she'd waited years for this moment. The shady HOA inspector resigned soon after, replaced by a newly elected board with Brian, one of the most honest guys around, at the helm. Together, we rewrote the power policy. Clear metering, itemized billing, and personal responsibility for every kilowatt. I even helped design the new shared EV charging stations, built to prevent exactly what Deborah tried to pull. No more hidden fees. No more entitled exceptions. And for the first time in a long time, the neighborhood felt like a community again. Deborah's old house, sold to a sweet young couple who introduced themselves with a pie and a handshake. Now, every time I pass that new charging station where her Tesla once parked, I smile, not out of pettiness, but because we proved something. If you stand your ground with the truth and a bit of engineering, you can beat the system and the bully. If only Deborah had been honest, she could have had it all. But instead, she crossed the wrong neighbor. Turns out karma doesn't need Wi-Fi or a charging cable. So tell me, was I wrong to build my own defense? Or was this long overdue justice served cold with a surge protector? Let's hear your thoughts.